Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right, but something still feels off? Welcome back to the Broken to Brave podcast. Today I have Kendall Dunn with me, and I am so excited for her to share her story, what she's gone through, the shifts that she's made, and her perspective on her relationship with God and what God had planned for her and how it differs a bit from what you might expect of a, typical culture for Christianity. And I'll just go ahead and just switch it to you if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. As you mentioned, my name is Kendall. Online, I'm Kendall Mariah. I don't use my last name on my places online because I was one of those people that was on Instagram and all those places before I got married. And I'm like, I'm not changing it just because I got married. So if you've seen me on there, that's where it comes from. But I am a military spouse and an adoptive mom. I born and raised in North Carolina, but I've moved around the country. My husband being military, we lived in Washington State, Oklahoma, Kansas, Kentucky, Tennessee. We've been a lot of
All
places.
over.
Has brought a lot of perspective, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But I am a full-time content creator and author. And so I get to spend my days being a storyteller, which has been a dream of mine. I just would have never imagined this is exactly how it would come to be,
Right?
in social media 20 years ago for sure. So getting to do stuff like this is literally like the joy of my life. So thank you again for letting me be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you on today. You mentioned several things when we were chatting beforehand where I actually got teary eyed, and I can tell that you are a beautiful soul. And I just wanted to start out with that. Just even your adoptive journey and the way that you look at things. Like, I'm truly happy that we met. Do you want to start with telling your story when you were 27? I know that that was a bit of a pivot for you. We've got a lot leading into that and a lot since then.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll set the stage a little bit before you because I am sure that there's probably people even feeling like they're in one of these seasons right now. So I was 27 years old. It was 2020, so which I know was a lot for a lot of people.
Mhm.
But my husband was deployed, and we just before that gone through adoption process. And I don't know how much you know about the process itself, but we were told it was going to take about 2 years for the process to go through. So our goal before his deployment was, well, if we can get through the home study process, the paperwork stuff, then we can spend your timeline of deployment, saving money for the rest of the investment in the process and, just preparing all those little things. But I mean, who wants to be faxing legal documents back and forth,
Right.
deployment? Well, come to find out, our process was going to be much shorter. We were told that when we make a profile book, you might have 50 plus moms see that book before you're chosen to be, a mother to their child. And so we were prepared for that. Our book was only seen by one mom, and that is our daughter's biological mom. Our process took 90 days,
Oh my
and
gosh, I have full body
our,
goosebumps.
yeah, our daughter was born the day after my husband was set to deploy. But thankfully, he had some really great leadership that allowed him to stay home for 4.5 more weeks. And then he deployed, though. So here I was in the previous 6 months, adoption wasn't even in our 18-month plan.
Yeah.
You know, I was very much in a survive and advance season where it's like, okay, I'm going to keep hustling. I had a business. If I hustle while he's deployed and because he's gone, I can do more work because I'm not worried about babysitting him. All those things you think
Yeah.
as a mom and a business owner. And everything was completely disrupted
Yeah.
in the best way. I'm living my dream of getting to become a mom. I've been entrusted with this newborn daughter, but my husband is now gone. So
Oh,
I'm living 500 miles from my nearest relative, and I have a newborn baby. My husband's gone, and then the pandemic hits in March. So he leaves end of January, pandemic hits in March. And now, not only is my family so far away,
yeah.
and I can't travel back and forth to see them or they see me, but a few weeks into that, my daughter has to have emergency surgery because they think she has a brain tumor.
Oh
And as
my
a first-time mom during the
goodness.
pandemic, we didn't know if it was cancerous or not. I had to sit at 27 years old, which now I'm like, gosh, I was still so young. Like at
Mhm.
27 years old, I had to sit at a round table with an oncologist with a neurologist,
Yeah.
with a plastic surgeon, and an ENT by myself,
Oh my
and to go
gosh.
over treatment plan of what was going on. And if you remember those early days of the pandemic, they weren't doing any voluntary surgeries. So
That's
I
right.
was at Vanderbilt Children's, which was the God wink like thing I was grasping onto. There was three universities or research hospitals in the country for children that had teams that could handle what she had. We happened to live 45 minutes from one. So that was the God
45.
wink I
Yeah.
was holding on to, like, you were going before me, you've set this out. But I was
And
sitting at
that
that,
maybe also the timing of why she was yours.
oh, and,
Like
oh, it,
all of
like
it.
insanity. Yes,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
But that day at Vanderbilt, it was myself. And that's when it hit me how serious it was. Myself, there was another mom, because you could only have one person at the hospital,
Mhm.
because they were young. Her child was going to have brain surgery. And there was another child going for their second open heart surgery, and me. We were the only three surgeries that day at Vanderbilt because that's how locked down everything was. And so I don't know if you've been to a large hospital like Vanderbilt, you've got these huge waiting rooms because
Yeah.
usually there's a lot going on. There's only the three of us women in that room, and I'm pacing,
Yeah.
because they had told us there was a couple options of what it could be, to mentally prepare, depending how invasive it looked. That's why the plastic surgeon was there, because we would go into a secondary surgery, because they didn't want her face to concave. All of these things. And again,
Wow.
she is not quite 4 months yet. And my mom had to stay in the parking lot. So all of that happens. Praise God, it was not cancerous. It was a rare type of internal hemangioma that was attached to her nasal cavities and was not attached to her brain stem, which was the fear.
Mm.
And so I bring her back home. We go back to pandemic life. And then that is when Ahmed Aubrey was killed a few weeks later.
Mm.
Now, I hadn't mentioned before, my daughter is African American, dark skin, and we as parents went through the process saying we're open to any child for any reason. We didn't have specifications on that. And we were also counseled on, well, if you're willing to adopt outside of your race, we were told then you need to be willing to make sure your child is not the only Black or Hispanic child in their community or in their school, things
Yes.
to consider. And so we did. And we were in a very diverse neighborhood. Well, I was walking her in a stroller one of those days. Remember COVID when everybody was going for walks just for
Hmm.
mental
That was
health?
me.
Well,
I had a newborn too.
exactly.
Yep.
So exactly. So I can vividly remember going for a walk, and I wore Apple Watch at the time, and getting an alert, because I had news alerts at that point, that talked about Ahmaud Arbery,
Yeah.
man shot and killed, and got, that case. And I heard about it, and I saw this young, dark skinned teenage boy playing basketball, and probably something he did every day. And it just hit me for the first time in my life of, oh my gosh, what conversations does she have to have with him
Yeah.
that my parents never had to have with me or my siblings? And what conversations am I going to need to have with my daughter
Yeah.
as she gets older, because the world can treat her so differently for her skin color. And that was right before George Floyd, and there was just so much to the Black Lives Matter movement. And I grew up here in a small town that's Title One and diverse socioeconomically, ethnicity wise, everything. And I had friends of color, but I had never imagined how we could be living in the same community, but having vastly different experiences. So I contacted some of my childhood friends. I was like, I'm sorry. Like, I was just ignorant to, like, the reality, because it was not my own.
Yeah.
And so all of these things were externalized pressures, new perspectives, while getting through the throes of those early stages of motherhood by myself. And my husband comes back from deployment that summer, and he was at work, and I was trying to put together a Dr. Brown's bottle. Have you ever used one of those? There's like 18 pieces
They're
to it.
so, yeah.
Yeah, like, for what?
Why? Why is it so
Exactly.
complicated? It's a bottle.
But clearly, I had at that point had been doing it for like 7 months,
Right.
every day, multiple times a day. But that day was the day the straw broke the camel's back. My daughter was crying, and my fight or flight was triggered because she was crying. And so I was trying to put the bottle together, and I am an internal processor. So even though thankfully she was in fight or flight, I'm not hollering or screaming. I'm just inside exploding.
Yeah.
And so I call my husband tell him what's happening. I was like, I literally cannot put it together. He reminds me there's a plain old Jane regular bottle in the back of the cabinet. Just grab it. Like she will not get acid reflux or colic from using this other bottle one time.
Yeah.
So I get through that moment, but as I was putting her down for a nap after she finally calmed down, I was like, this is it. I am not doing this anymore. Like I have known since the second grade I was ADHD.
Yeah.
I've known that I struggle with executive function. Growing up, I was able to cope by having irregular sleep schedules, by having different creative outlets. But the reckoning of motherhood and all these other things going on in my life at the same time, my body was trying to come out of fight or flight because it knew that my husband was back.
Yeah.
But it was like it had been in that fight and flight for so long, it didn't know how to relax.
Mhm.
So something as small as a Dr. Brown's bottle set it off.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it is a day that I can like still smell the air from that day kind of thing in my brain. And I went upstairs to my computer where I had a folder of documentation I had been getting for years on different medical research on being ADHD and medicines and how it
Mhm.
manifests in women, and printed it all out and went to the doctor's office and started medicine for the first time. But then there's that whole moment of, do I really need it?
Yeah.
And I saw kids in college abusing it, and I'm like,
Yes.
already not sleeping. I can't not sleep more. And the doctor was like, if you really need to take a medication like Adderall, you won't have that problem. Girl, I took my first Adderall, got home, and slept for 4.5 hours
Mm.
after taking Adderall.
Yeah.
And that was the peace of mind and just the wink of like, oh no, my brain clearly does work and operate very differently.
Mm.
And my husband's like, if you can sleep that hard and that long, like he had to wake me up in the middle of the day after taking an Adderall, you clearly needed it.
Mhm.
But it was hard to reconcile the fact I'd gone 27 years without it. And
Yeah.
it's fine. I thrived in school. Like I was one of those people that was very successful with a busy schedule. And
Yeah.
I think now that's how I coped is because every minute of every day was, you know,
Jam-packed.
yes, jam-packed down to
Yes.
a penny. But that whole year, the 27th year of my life, all those events drastically changed everything. Like it's almost like it's that year or that moment, that season that there was the before Kindle and there's now the after Kindle. And in the middle of it, I just thought my life was on fire and that it would never end.
Yeah. If there's somebody right now listening that feels that, I feel like my life is on fire. I feel like life is happening to me. It doesn't feel like it's going to end. Is there anything that you would want them to know based on what you know now?
Yeah, a lot of it, some people hate this word, but it's the framing of it and not the toxic positivity kind. Because I'm in one of those seasons right now, again, all over again. Is the highest high of my life with this book coming out. My dream was to write this book. Meanwhile, a week after the book comes out, while I'm supposed to be starting my book tour and traveling, all those things is a aspiring author that you could look forward to. And we find out my husband's got to go. And
Deploy.
yeah, and he's leaving, and I'm the stability for my daughter. And I knew in good conscience I could not leave her while he's leaving. Even though we're surrounded by incredible support, my first calling is her and taking care of her. And so I had to cancel the book tour. And now he was supposed to be gone for the 3 months he's gone now, but now we found out that he's going to deploy. He just got back from deployment 6 months ago,
Hmm.
last August. And so now he's leaving again for potentially up to a year. And so it's just one of those things. It's like, at what point does it give? Do I get to experience, do we get to live like there's not about to be another foot that's going to drop? Like that feeling.
Yeah.
But
I
what
know
I've,
so many can relate to that feeling.
and it sucks and it's terrible. And there's no way to sugarcoat that.
Hmm.
But I've really had to spend some time in journaling and just meditating of all the seasons that I thought I would never survive, that were horrible and uncomfortable. Not only did I make it out of it at some point, but if I look hard enough, looking back, there was tiny moments, like the hospital being the one of three in the country, and we're 45 minutes away.
Yes.
Like 3 years later, we took my daughter to a follow-up appointment at UNC Chapel Hill here in North Carolina. And I was very anxious about that appointment because obviously a lot of
Yeah.
triggers with that. we go into the room to meet with the hematology team, which works with oncology there. And the doctor walks in and she kind of looks at us, and I'm like, why do we feel like we know each other? And she goes out, reads our chart, comes back, and she's like, I was on your daughter's team at Vanderbilt 3 years ago for your original surgery.
Oh,
How crazy.
yeah.
Like, so in that moment, again, I'm like,
We're always taken care of.
yes, in the smallest ways. Like,
Yeah.
and that's what is so hard for me to try to communicate sometimes to other people that are going through it. Like, I'm not saying that God is always going to replace the thing that you're devastated by something better and more wonderful. But sometimes he just gives you enough of God wings, is what I call them, or just these moments that you can hold on to hope to survive that season.
Mm.
And that I believe God is the person that redeems everything universally, restores. Like the pendulum has to swing at some point,
Mhm.
you know? And so instead of like praying for it to end, I would pray for like strength to survive. Like,
Mhm.
Lord, don't let me come out on the other end of this experience or this season worse off.
Yeah.
If I've got to go through this, make me feel mentally stronger. One of the things I've prayed for over the last year, because of course my husband deployed last year, this same day my manuscript was due.
Mm.
I'm like, really, like this is uncanny in the timing, right? And I prayed for capacity, like God,
Yeah.
I'm going to be solo parenting through the production of this book. And I'm a deacon at my church. I'm a volunteer at multiple organizations. My husband is a great parent. Like he does a lot of things around the house. So all these other responsibilities are going to come on me. Those responsibilities aren't going anywhere.
Mhm.
So if those responsibilities aren't going to change, then change me.
Yeah.
And I think that's what some people forget is that if the situation's not going to change, then ask to be changed yourself or make me aware of the areas I need to grow in.
100%. If life is actually always happening for me, what am I supposed to learn from this? Who am
Right.
I supposed to become as a result of this experience? Because
Exactly.
it's not that we're not going to have hardship. We will have
Eh, Yes.
hardship. Who are you going to be in the midst of it? And will you allow yourself to make this thing create another, better
Yes.
version of you? Like I always think about and bring up moments where people are like, oh, I've been praying to have more patience, or I've been praying to be more confident and this and that. And it's like, yeah, but God isn't just going to give that to you. He's going to give you the thing, which is probably a hardship, so that
Yes.
you have an opportunity to develop
Right.
that.
Yes. And in my book, that's exactly what I talk about is this concept of soul friction,
Let's talk more about
where
it.
you're
Yeah.
like you're internally wanting or needing something more or different, whether that's spiritually or like literally, like I was talking about, like capacity. I was like, there's no more hours in a day, Lord. Like, yeah, what am I supposed to do?
Mhm.
So, it, figuring out those, whatever that friction you're feeling is right now. And what is friction? Friction is two things rubbing together. It's not an uncomfortable thing. Like, I don't know if your thighs touch, but mine touch at Disney
Mine
World.
do. Yeah.
Not uncomfortable. That friction is not comfortable. But what I also know about friction is it creates fire, and fire can do one of two things, but you got to choose. Like in these moments of life, is this friction going to burn my house down and burn my life out or cause me to burn out? And let me tell you, I have unintentionally chose burnout in other
Yes.
seasons
Yes.
because I was not a good steward of my own capacity or of my mind or of my spiritual health. I have done that multiple times. I could write a whole book on that in itself. Or what this book is about is you can also choose, okay, is this friction going to refine me? Is
Mm.
it going to renew me, like in the ways that it does with gold? Also, think
Yes.
about fire in itself. Once it moves from friction to fire, fire can bring warmth, it can shed light, it can bring darkness and illuminate what needs to be changed. Like there's so many things light can do. And the name of the book is This Little Fire of Mine because it's a play on the words of this little light of mine.
Yeah.
Because I have felt this friction my whole life. I tell a story in the book, and now knowing that I'm neurodivergent and autistic, I'm like, this is why I did it because I have no social wherewithal, like
Yeah.
zero.
Mm.
Like what I pick up on from people is more so their energy
Yeah.
than what they're thinking about me. So I can't tell what you're thinking, but I can tell based on your energy. Well, that was the same as when I was little. Well, have you ever been to like a church business meeting? They have them like quarterly at our church. And
I
it's like,
haven't.
okay, we're a smaller church, so everybody's invited and included in
Okay.
this. I should have not been included. I should have been at the kids' table, but I was always that child that was at Thanksgiving or wherever. I was like, no, I'm sitting over here. The conversation is way more interesting with y'all. And so I sat in that business meeting in elementary school and I paid attention in church. There's one thing I've known for sure, and I think that's why my deconstruction has not led me away from God. We can debate anything all day long in religion. We can ask questions, but there's been enough evidence in my life that there is a God, there is a universal entity that is helping me along the way
Mm-hmm.
and that loves me. I have enough evidence in the bank. We'll question everything else,
Mm-hmm.
figure everything else out. But whether it exists or not is not up for debate for me personally.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm thankful to have the evidence. So imagine me, little Kendall, blonde headed with this deep Southern accent, and I have a deeper voice as a child, raising my hand in the middle of this business meeting because someone from one of the committees says, we're going to spend X amount of money on glass balls for the foyer. Well, I'm over here doing my like elementary math. $90 per glass ball to go in a bowl in the foyer, and there's going to be 5 of them. Now, $500 on glass balls is a lot
Yeah.
regardless. But as an elementary student, $500 to me was
Was
all the
outrageous.
what you could not imagine.
Yeah.
Like I didn't get an allowance as a kid. And so like when I got $20, I thought I'd won the lottery. So what do you mean $500? And so I raised my hand and asked, why are we spending $500 on glass balls when there's people across the street that are hungry and we're told to take care of them? Like I was
Yeah.
putting together the sermons
Yeah.
and I could just feel my mom like, please
You
put
are
your
such a beautiful soul. Like since you have been little.
I'm going to ask questions regardless of who's in the room, and probably I shouldn't. And bless my poor parents for not reprimanding me right there for it, because I was definitely sticking my nose in somewhere it didn't belong as a child. But having that mentality of something doesn't feel right, like math is not math in here.
Yeah.
That friction, I felt it as a little kid, like I'm going to raise my hand. We got to do something about this. All the way to those instances of when I'd get on Facebook after everything that was going down with Ahmaud Arbery or George Floyd, and I would see what some of the people that I knew were some of the best Christians I thought in my life say things that were horrific or horrendous, and then now having to do the mental jumps of, well, what do you think about my baby?
Yeah.
Like, how does this translate? Or how in the world do you say nice things about my daughter and how beautiful she is and what a perfect little angel she is? But can say that about someone else with dark skin. Like it it was, oh gosh, it was the most uncomfortable thing to sit and reconcile with. But that was part of my deconstruction of faith, was so much of what I assumed it meant to be as a good Christian was based on what other people were modeling. I had certain people in my life that were like the gold stars of what it meant to be a good Christian, a Christ follower. And I had to completely take that out of my head and say, okay, by studying the Bible and looking at the patterns of Christ and his own actions, how does that translate to my own life? And follow that example instead. And that was just very different than what I had perceived before. And at this point, I've had an online ministry for 10 years now. It was, I was 4 or 5 years into it. Then I hosted a weekly Bible study. I do a line by line historical context. I love the hermeneutics of scripture, go in deep and heavy with it. And I had people in my own Bible study that were telling me that I had drank some kind of like liberal Kool-Aid because I was speaking out against racism. And again, the math just didn't make sense to me. I'm like, I've not talked about any kind of policy. I've not talked about,
This is not political. This
no,
is human rights.
right. And that was so hard for me to reconcile because for me, it was my life. So I wasn't even thinking about it in the context of politics. I was thinking about, I'm concerned about the lady that was wearing a cross necklace and had a keychain of her church when she asked me what made me want to adopt an N-word baby at the grocery store. And I'm like, the fact that you don't see any problem with saying that out loud while you're trying to exemplify being a Christian was incredibly difficult. And I think there's so many people that, even if it's not the biggest, weight that you're carrying right now, if you're a Christian, to any degree, seeing the juxtaposition right now in culture of what you feel like it means to be a Christian, what is described in scripture as far as how we treat people, who we show up for, what that looks like, what our priorities should be, and how that's cast so differently right now as culture. And that's why I kind of referred to it as like cultural Christianity, because it's just so different. But you see people not just on TV being that way, you're like, whoa, like
Yeah.
people that you on a regular basis are like, how is somebody that I've sat in the most wonderful Sunday school lessons with, who's taught, like, how I know you know the Bible. So, like, it's so that is something we're all carrying, like a mass trauma that we're all trying to figure out and reconcile within our faith. I think a lot of people just haven't named it yet. And so that's why I try to give it a name, with soul friction, and you can experience it collectively like we're experiencing right now,
Mhm.
or in a brief moment, like me raising my hand in that church meeting, or it can be a difficult personal experience that says, I did all the right things. I checked all the boxes. Why did I not get the right outcome?
Mhm. Mm.
And it's just these moments that are so, so pivotal. And we all go through them, and we're going to go through them again. So my prayer is the people that read the book or, just hear this conversation is that you see, and not that you wanted this opportunity for growth. It's not that you were like, Lord, I was not trying. I really have the energy to get up in the morning. I do not want to learn anything right now.
Yeah.
But to see this season or whatever you're feeling as a chance to steward your spiritual life through it and to gain better capacity. So the next time, like the way I'm handling deployment is this round versus a year ago,
Mhm.
it sucks and it's terrible. And I'm angry that it has to happen again.
So soon.
Right. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, well, I'm just going to apply all the things I learned last year to our deployment cycle,
Yeah.
do it again.
Yeah.
Like allow it to be something so that when you go through grief again or when you go through loss again,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to suck in the same way, or that you can look back at your previous seasons and say, these are the tools I learned,
Mhm.
the ways I learned to cope. Like one thing for me that has been big in just the last few months is I have to wake up and get outside first thing in the morning. I
Yeah.
don't necessarily have to go for a walk, but just get on my back patio. And
Get the sun on your face.
yes, I need that shot of vitamin D
Mhm.
to feel like there's hope. I think it's
Yeah.
the simplest, like the sun will come out in the morning. There's the sun. I'm here.
Yeah.
Everything will still,
Yeah.
the earth is still moving, even though it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. You've talked about thinking critically in a few different ways. And I heard you earlier say, like, ask questions. It's a good thing to ask
mhm,
questions. And I just wanted to like circle back to that and see if there was anything else that you wanted to say. I know you talk about this in your book too, but any encouragement around that?
yeah, if you grew up in a household or a religion or a culture that told you questions were bad, or that questions, if you have questions, that means you don't believe, or that your faith's not strong enough, or if you're questioning other people or systems that you don't trust people, it's thrown back onto you like something is wrong with you simply because you want to ask questions. And for me, questions has always been about clarity because my brain detects patterns. And when I notice that pattern is off, I want to say, huh, where's the crink in that chain?
Yeah.
What is making that happen or that result change? Because based on my calculations, it shouldn't be that way or that doesn't make sense. It's very similar to any other, I think, spiritual practice or even physical practice for your body. The more you do it, the more confident you get in doing it and the better results you see because you ask questions and you realize how empowering it is to figuring things out for yourself.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times our questions are met with more questions. But when you've done the research beyond, well, that's just the way it is, when someone told you
Hmm.
that from a pulpit or based on a rule or a parent, because I said so, whatever that is, once you've done your own research, you've asked the questions, you've gone down the rabbit holes, when those questions are shot back at you, you're able to say, well, actually, this is how I came to that conclusion, or this is what I found out. Versus if you had this mentality of, I learned things and we're just told to believe it because someone with authority told me to believe it,
Right.
or this is the way it's always been,
Yeah.
or someone that is more important with more power, more knowledge said so, then all of your power is given to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that we were all created with critical thinking skills, with creativity. And if you're a Christ follower, I think one of the most interesting things about Jesus is he asked over 300 questions in scriptures and through the parables when he's talking and teaching.
Yeah.
He answers three,
Yeah.
three. And so to me, that tells me what I need to know is that the best way to learn
Is to
or
ask.
to grow is to ask questions of not just why. And I think that's where it sometimes starts. But, well, what made it be that way to start? Or just
Yeah.
because it is that way, does it have to be that way?
And the way that you're framing it up is from a curious standpoint. Like
Right.
nothing that you've said has felt judgmental. It's like, well, let me actually get really curious about what's happening
For
here.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful because sometimes I think maybe even a lot of times people just stay on autopilot, like you said, in a different way where they're just continue operating with whatever they were told because maybe part of it is there's a fear that if they ask, it's going to trigger a bad reaction in somebody or defensiveness. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
does that, yeah.
totally. I mean, because everyone that I'm surrounded by every day does not think like I think. But what I've learned is by being a better question asker,
Mm-hmm.
then I can also be a better question receiver because I realize how much I don't know and I'm still figuring out. And so I have so much more grace to give other people as they're also figuring out.
Mm-hmm.
And realizing that it's because my own unique set of experiences that my perspective has been challenged, that it has been changed.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those things I would never want someone else to have to go through. So I have to be gracious. And I also think that is through relationship where I can say, hey, I saw you repost this, or I saw you comment on this, or you say something. And would it be okay if we talked about that? Because I just want to see how you come to that conclusion or where you're at, because I'm working through it myself and I land over here. And I think when we approach it with this humility,
Mm-hmm.
then it allows other people to bring their guard down to also be willing
Yes.
to ask questions. And I think for us, if you're a proclaiming Christian, that is discipleship. That's that iron sharpens iron, and we're going back and forth and figuring it out together. But it's based in healthy relationship and a safe place to do that. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
think comment sections are usually the place to do that. But being able to meet with a friend and talk about those hard things and to shift with them gradually, because it doesn't happen for anybody overnight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The scariest thing for me, and I think anybody kind of looking at asking questions, or why so many people are so fearful of just the word deconstruction when it comes to faith, is if this one thing about my faith changes or I change my mind, what does that say about the rest?
Mm-hmm.
And people know that they are choosing to enter a season of uncomfortableness.
Mm-hmm.
And all they can focus on is the fear of it unraveling things.
Mm-hmm.
Am I saying you're not going to maybe lose friendships or relationships or things? It's very, really possible because it is a difficult process and not many people will choose difficult things in life.
That's true.
Not many people are not going to choose friction if they have the option. There's friction we fall into or get hit smacked in the face, but there's also friction we choose. And I think sometimes it's intellectually we choose it. Or for me, a lot of mine was spurred by wanting to be the mom my daughter deserved.
Yeah.
And it's like, I wouldn't know that I would choose uncomfortability and losing relationships for myself, but I'll do it for my daughter all day long.
All day.
And so people don't want to lose that. And I think that's part of the problem right now in culture is with a lot of people that are a lot older than myself,
Mm-hmm.
that are a different generation, that they are just doubling down on some of the most like irate things that I'm like, I just want to look at them and be like, girl, have you even read the book? Like, have you even read your Bible? But it's because if they have to change their mind on that, then they have to look back on the fact of 70 years of my life I've been wrong. Or
Yeah.
that's how they feel.
And then there could be some shame with that. And people tend to
Exactly.
run
And
from
nobody,
shame. Yeah.
exactly. And nobody wants to choose those things. But I can tell you the confidence and the peace of mind that I've had post deconstructing. And I don't think I'll ever be fully done because I'm always going to be asking questions. But there's this godly confidence and probably truthfully what the Bible details as wisdom that comes from working it out and leaning into the unknown and the fact that everything is not going to be black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that God's working on me right now is that two people can be convicted differently and it be right for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
But the answer is different.
Yeah.
And that's strange. And it can be a simple thing like for one person, they believe that they cannot drink. Drinking is a sin for them, or that is because they have issues, whatever it is. Meanwhile, somebody else could have a glass of wine every once in a while and it never be a phase. And both of those convictions be right.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just something to reconcile. So I think choosing uncomfortableness, choosing the friction is a way to elevate your life.
Yeah.
It's a way to get to a place where you have peace of mind, where you can enter conversations or relationships with people that don't look like you, don't talk like you, don't agree like you, don't vote like you, whatever it is. And you're confident enough in who you are that you can engage with them and know what God's doing in your life and have peace knowing that God can work in their lives too, but it's not your job to be judge, jury, and executioner.
Right.
But a lot of us carry the weight of thinking we have to know it all
Mm-hmm.
and be it all to everyone when it comes to faith. And that is what's crushing your spirit, not the actual friction from whatever season you're going into. So releasing that and makes a lot of room for questions that I think would help so many people.
So many, so many. And I think doing the work, doing inner work, just
Mhm.
contributes to your ability to be able to do this, to step out of, I don't have to be right. I can change my mind. I can change my opinion. I could have made mistakes in the past, and that's to be human. And so when we do that work and really embody self acceptance in that way, all of what you're talking about is so much easier.
Mhm. And what an example to our children or to those people around us to see our growth,
Yeah.
to say, I used to believe like this, but actually the way God's been working in my life and the more conversations I have with different people, my perspective has changed. So now I believe this.
Yes.
And if we were able to articulate that more in our small groups or in our relationships, what a beautiful picture of the transformation people are seeking with Christ.
Mm.
You know, that true renewing of your mind, the hope and all that we are promised, but I don't think we often get to experience because we are so hell bent on certainties and
Mm-hmm.
black and white
Mm-hmm.
that we're not willing to say, oh, this process of transformation and sanctification is lifelong.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell people all the time, I hope 10 years from now, I'll look back and I'm corrected.
Yeah.
That I say, there was things I hadn't quite figured out yet and I'm still working through.
It's a
Or,
journey. Yeah.
yes, I'm not the same type of Christian I was 10 years ago, but that's the point.
That's the
But that's the
point.
point.
Yeah. Oh, I love this so much. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to leave listeners with, either about what they will discover in your book or anything about your journey?
I think we've covered a lot of
We
ground.
have, yeah.
In the book, I really take people through some very specific scenarios in my own life with purity culture, sexual assault, infertility, how all of that played a role into my own view of my own body. I talk about, of course, racism and why do Christians not always look like Christ, and how having to stand up to some people in our Christian college that I was in when they were being really hateful to some LGBT students. And at the time, I didn't have a formed opinion. I just knew that you shouldn't treat people that way.
Yeah.
I just try to give the most raw examples of those moments that were frictiony, that were terrible and awful and difficult, and how I processed and worked through them. The book is not me telling you what to believe about any one thing, because I believe that's all our own personal work and conviction. But I give you tools to figure out questions that are so important, like why do I believe what I believe?
Yeah.
Do I believe it because some man said it behind a pulpit when I was 10? Do I believe it because it was inherited by my parents?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I believe it because I know it to be true based on my own research and discernment and what I have learned about God and his character? And so I want people to approach doubt and deconstruction and questions with a personal authority and autonomy that
Mm.
allows you to have confidence into going into the uncomfortableness. Or if you're in that season already where you're having to work through some things and I did all the right things and shit still kept hitting the fan.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do we work through that? How do we come out the other side not burned up and burned out, but instead refined, renewed,
Mm-hmm.
and emboldened, and use that light of our experience, that warmth of our experience to bring other people to the hope of God, that it's not all about condemnation and just becoming a Christian because you're scared to go to hell, but because there truly is this release and this ability to say, I don't have it all figured out,
Yeah.
but I have a relationship with the one that is working it through me, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not doing it alone. That can increase my capacity. What I was born with, strength or capacity or whatever, fill that blank in, is not limited.
Yeah.
Opportunity for growth. And that is so counterculture because we think we're confined to our diagnosis. We think we're confined to a season or to what happened to us or the cards we're dealt. But the hope of the gospel is that we're not confined.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
We're
we
limitless.
yes, that we partner with someone that the rules don't apply to.
Yeah.
And when you live with that kind of expectation, I think it would really shock a lot of people how God does come through and gives you those moments of light that you can hold on to.
Thank you so much, Kendall. For those who are intrigued and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to read this book like yesterday, where is the best place to find it and where is the best place to contact you?
Yeah, you can find the book on Amazon. It's on Audible. I'm the person that reads it. And so I get to tell my own stories, which was really important. You can get it at Barnes& and Noble online or in store, Target, any of the good places you can find it. You can find me at Kendall Mariah anywhere online, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I'm most active on Instagram, so if you slide into my DMs, if you have questions or you have a thought, I would love to hear them. That's the best place to probably do it. And my website's kendallmariah.com. So thank you so, so much for having me. This has been fun.
Wonderful. Thank you. And for those listening, I will link that in the show notes so you can just easily click it and find her and get her book. Thank you.